Floating shelves are super cool. Today, we're gonna build them step by step. Follow me. All right, guys, so the first step and most important step in this is determining what material we're gonna use. Our client has spec'd out some white oak. This is really nice, really popular. Look at this stuff, super pretty. Nice graining. Good stuff. Then we're gonna go over our layout. So upstairs where we're using it, we're gonna have about 42-inch shelves. I've got material here where I can get the pieces that I need out of it. I'll take you through the steps. We'll start cutting stuff. You'll see what I mean. The application that I prefer to use, what I think looks the best and is the most professional, is a mitered box. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut my pieces to length. I'm gonna take them to the table saw. I'm gonna miter them to the appropriate width. I'm gonna glue everything together, put a couple of nails in it, hold it up with clamps. I'll take that apart, sand it, and I'll get ready to stick that thing in, and it's gonna look perfect. It's gonna look like one big solid piece of wood. Here we go. So a few of the tools that we're gonna need today, guys, are gonna be a chop saw or a miter saw. We're gonna need a table saw with an adjustable blade so that we can put the actual 45-degree miter on it. We've got miscellaneous nail guns, glue, all that good stuff. You'll see it as we start working. You only need a few tools to make these beams look really, really nice. All right, I'm gonna start by cutting my boards down to a length that is just larger than what I'm gonna be making the shelves. I've got extra material. I've got a 12-foot board here. I've got 42-inch shelves. Quick math says I can do 48 inches. So I'll cut each of these at about 45 inches, which means then I can pick and play with what side I wanna use, play with the grain, try and make this thing look really nice. All right, guys, so if you notice, this being a natural product and it being milled, the ends of these are kind of split out. It happens with every board, both sides. So what I've done is I've cut it larger than what I need the shelf to be. I've gone back to my cut edge. I've measured over, still larger than what I need because I'm gonna have to miter it later so that I can get rid of all these fraying edges and have some good wood when I do the miters to tie everything together. Let's take it to the table saw. So the other thing you'll notice on these pieces of wood is when they come from the supplier or the distributor, it has one square edge and it has one random length edge. So if you look at that, just make sure you take the square edge, use that on the guide of your table saw so that we make sure our miter is nice and straight and square. This one's gonna be 7 3/4 overall. I like to have a little bit deeper shelf, something that's substantial enough to put things on, but not so heavy that it starts to sag or fall over time. There we go. That's our first mitered edge, nice and square. So over here, let's cut the rest for our shelves. All right, the next thing I'm gonna do before I cut all these to length is I'm gonna take the material that I'm gonna use for the face. I'm gonna cut that down to length. I'm gonna get that mitered, and then we'll cut everything to length at the same time so that we make sure all our boards are the same and everything lines up good. All right, guys, next I'm gonna be mitering up the face frames for my shelf. What I'll do is, because it's random width, I'm gonna clean everything up. I'm gonna take it all down to the same net size with 2 square edges. Then we're gonna set the miter on our fence, cut one side, flip it, cut the other. So here we go. Sweet, so now that's all cut. I've got my miter set. I've got my pieces laid out, ready to go. What I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna take my face frames and I'm gonna line them up with the shelves so that I can try and match the grain. See how we've got some grain texture in here? It's really important to match the grain as best as possible. It's gonna help make these shelves look like one piece when they're all done. So it's a little bit of extra time now, but it pays off in the long run. So let's line these out. Let's see which ones look the best and get these ready to go to the saw and get the miters cut. All right, guys, here it is. So as you can see, I took a little bit of extra time, not a lot. Got my face frame down here. I lined it up with the top and bottom part of my shelves. I lined up the grain as best as I could. See how we've got some of this grain that's blending together? It's gonna look really nice when it's all glued up. So next thing I'm gonna do is I'll mark my cut point at the shortest point. We're gonna start the cut here. I'm gonna start my cut about there. Same thing down here, we'll cut it off. We'll cut it to length once we get it all going. So this is our start. Take these to the saw, let's get the miters cuttered and get ready to glue these up. All right, guys, here's another good trick for floating shelves. We got to remember that we've got our miter side going out. It's going to face and glue up with everything else. It's what you're going to see. But on the back where we meet the wall, we've got a hard square edge. Nothing in the world is perfectly square. What I like to do is I put a little relief cut on this before the zero line so that the first piece to touch the wall is going to be the top edge of this shelf. Let's see what that looks like. All right, guys, now we got all our pieces cut. We got 5 pieces. We got 1 for each side, 1 for the face, top, bottom. We've lined everything up. We lined up the grain. We're making sure that this thing's gonna look good. We're ready for glue, ready for nail. Put a couple of clamps on this thing and let it dry. Glue is your friend. Use a lot of glue. Like this, more glue, less nails. And this thing is not going anywhere. Just one nail to hold it. The nails are all temporary. All right, let's do the lid. I like to come back through, put a little bead. Like I said, no such thing as too much glue. We're never gonna see it. Let's fill this one up. Make sure we get it in all the grains there, guys. Let's put our tongue. And as you can see, it's already pretty tight. See, we got some edges that are overlying. We got some gaps that are a little bit larger than we want them to be. Next thing I'm gonna do is grab some of my clamps. I'm gonna clamp this face up and get these gaps to all close down nice and tight. Leave it to dry and we'll come back and sand it. No rush on this. This glue's not gonna dry anytime soon. We got plenty of time. You get a little bit of squeeze out, whatever, that's all normal. Just wipe up the glue as you go. All right, guys, our shelf is done. It's all glued up. It's got a few nails in it. We got these clamps set. It's holding tight. We're gonna leave it. We're gonna let it dry. We're gonna come back in a couple hours, sand it, and get it ready. The next step, probably the most important step, is a ledger. We gotta figure out how we're going to attach this to the wall. We're gonna work on next is our ledger. This piece is going to fit inside of the cavity that we've left inside the shelf. I'm gonna fix that to the wall. I'm gonna slide the shelf over it, and then it's gonna fit perfectly. So first things I gotta do is measure the inside of my opening. I've got 40 3/8. I like to undersize it a little bit just so it's not super hard to get on there. So I'll make this one about 40 inches. And then my overall height is 1 5/8. I'm gonna make this 1.5 inches so it slides on nice and snug. And my overall depth is 7 inches. I'll make mine about 6 inches. I don't need it to go all the way to the front, so I'll make it about 6 inches deep, 1.5 inches thick, and I'm gonna make it 40 inches wide. So let's start that. For my materials, 3/4 inch thick. I want to make this thing over 6 inches, so I'm going to cut all my feet at 5 1/4 inches. Quick trick. Doesn't have to be perfect. This isn't a super tight measurement. Remember, I left enough room at the front, so if it's a little longer, a little shorter, that's okay. I'm just going to take the piece I cut off and use it to mark as I go. Only touching the tape measure once. All right, now I got my 1.5 inches. These fit inside nice and snug. I'm gonna lay out my blocks. 20 inches is gonna be the middle. So I got 20 inches, and then I got 10 inches, 30 inches. All right guys, so I got my ledger set out. I've got all the pieces I need to build it. I'm gonna put some glue on these blocks, put a couple of pin nails to hold them in place, and I'm gonna attach some screws from the backside just to give it some extra strength. Start by pre-drilling the center of my line. It is, guys. Super easy, really quick, very strong. By the time that glue goes off, I mean, this thing's going nowhere. This is gonna sit on the wall like so. The shelf's gonna slide right over it. It's not gonna have anywhere to go. It's gonna be perfectly strong. All right, guys, we're back. Our shelves are all dried. What we'll do is we're gonna remove all of our clamps. We're gonna take a look at our surface. We have one that looks like this. Next step is to roll the corners and sand down the wood, make it look all pretty. When I sand it, I like to do a progression. I've got an 80 grit, and then I step it up to a 120, and then I finish with a 180. I stop at 180, some guys do 220. I leave it there just because the nature of the wood, it's rough already, so 220, I mean, doesn't make that big of a difference. Got our ledgers. Those are all ready to go. Break this down and get it sanded. To roll the corners, I like to take a screwdriver or just something with a hard metal edge, and I can kind of round over some of these high spots. Plane this stuff down. It's going to help close the gap on the corners, as well as save my sandpaper a little bit, because when I get those high edges, it likes to chew through the sandpaper and go through it too quick. So this is just a little step that'll help you out in the long run. So. First one I'm going to do is the 80 grit. It's nice and coarse. It's going to take out all the imperfections real fast. Now we're going to come back through with our 180. This will be our final pass. And you'll notice as I start to hit this with finer and finer sandpaper, the wood grain is going to pop out more. So you're going to see more of the character of the wood. It's going to be smoother to the touch. It's going to be an all-around better product. guys, that's it for the show. Let me know what you think. Pretty good. All right, guys, so we're back in the space. We've got our ledger made. I've already installed one of our floating shelves. I'm just going to walk you through how we did that. Here's our ledger. I've pre-drilled a couple of holes determined by this. I'm going to mark my center location, which I've already marked here. That's the center point between my TV and the wall. I'm going to give myself a level line. I've got my line on the wall. That's what I want to set my ledger to. Get these screws started. Oh wow, look who it is. Wow, the man himself. The nice white shirt guy. So I've got our screws started. Holding tight on the line. That one's nice and snug. Follow my line. You see I stick my level on there. We're perfect. Let me get my last screw in. That's set, that's ready to go. All I gotta do is grab my shelf. Here's our shelf. Got that all mitered, glued up, sanded. Looks really nice. This is how easy it is. Done. All right, guys, so as you can tell, super easy. That shelf went on. Super quick, super fun, really easy to make. Looks very high-end, very professional. There's a couple of details here that I want to highlight. So what I've done is I've just slid the shelf on. Right now this can be removed and reinstalled very easily. I left it that way because I want my finisher to come back through. I want him to stain everything, and then we'll slide this back on and we can do either a couple of pocket screws, like real small trim head screws, or 2 little pin nails is all we really need. We can put in there, we'll nail into the ledger, and it's gonna hold that in place. I hope you guys liked it. As you can tell downstairs, it doesn't take a lot to make this happen. It's the small details that make these come out very nice. And if you like what we did here, follow down below, like and subscribe. Appreciate it.